Hi, my name's Alan Tsao, and I help students master AP Physics 1. Today, I actually want to talk to you about a very common thing that teachers and a lot of students ask is about showing your work. And that might sound kind of like a dumb question, and it might be a question you ask your teacher, but let me give you my perspective because I'm a person who's asked that question in the past, and let me tell you a bit about a story about why I think it's actually so important to show your work. So I was actually a pretty good math student. I could do a lot of things in my head. I actually did math competitions in middle school called Number Sense, where you weren't allowed to write things down. You had to do all the math mentally. You could not write or do any work. It was just about could you compute things in your head very quickly. So I actually was pretty good at math and putting things together and not writing much stuff down. And I did not like to write things down because I was lazy. I think I've expressed that to you guys before. I'm a pretty lazy person, right? So I didn't really want to write everything down that I was doing. At some point when I got into college, the very early part of college, and I was doing more complicated problems, more advanced problems, I was noticing I was making a lot of mistakes. Okay, a lot of little mistakes, here and there, and it was affecting my grade. And I was just kind of shook it off, just like I made a little mistake. That's okay. Not a big mistake, not a big deal. However, those little mistakes sometimes were starting to add up. One, in a lot of point losses in terms of grades, but two, in just sort of just being overconfident because when you're doing something, you want to do a good job. You want to do everything correctly and accurately, and the little mistakes were starting to bug me a lot. Eventually, it got to a point where I just could not, like, I was getting making too many mistakes. I couldn't get like even close to the right answer because when you're doing like a whole long, more complex problem, right? That just doesn't take like less than 2 minutes to solve, but like a problem that takes you like a good amount of time to work out. Not writing things down is really bad. And one thing I learned was I didn't have the discipline to write everything down. Like I would skip all these steps, but then I couldn't figure out where I was going wrong. So I would have literally like some of my physics problems took up 2 full pages of work. And when I was skipping over steps, I could not find where I was making the mistake. So that's the first reason I started writing things out more clearly. It was just that to help me identify it because I trust me when you're doing like I'm even talking beyond AP calculus. Okay, when you're doing really complicated problems that take a lot of work and a lot of steps involved, if you cannot write things out, I guarantee maybe you can put together the concepts, but you're just not going to get the right answer in the end. You're just not going to you're just going to make too many mistakes. Every little mistake compounds into something that is not solvable for you. So that's like the first reason. The second reason is it made me a better communicator, and communicating is kind of an interesting relationship here. But in the early parts, I was actually really bad at communicating, explaining things to people or teaching them things until I started writing things out more because then I had to start thinking and explaining what my thought process was. And that's like a really important skill. If you're worried about AI taking over the jobs and doing things, let's say you're a great coder but you don't like to communicate, you don't like to talk to people. I get it, that's fine. Guess what? The future of your job is going to depend heavily on your ability to communicate ideas to other people. And showing your work and writing them down is the first step for you to communicate ideas to other people and explain what it is you're thinking. Because you can have the most brilliant idea, you could have the best thing in the world, but if you cannot communicate it, if you cannot share it with other engineers or other people or whatever job, if you cannot communicate it, it does not matter how great of an idea you have. Long gone are the days where you could just be like this brilliant person just writing things down by yourself, and other people maybe hundreds of years later will come and realize how brilliant you were. But that's very rare. That most people just fade into obscurity. You really want to be a person who can communicate well because that is going to be a big difference, to be able to explain ideas. Whether you're in business and you're marketing things, whether you want to be a content creator and create things, whether you want to be a teacher, whether you want to be a computer science, whether you want to be an engineer who works on really groundbreaking stuff or really cool projects, You have to be able to communicate well. You have to be able to explain and show what it is you're doing. And if you cannot muster an iota of effort to just show like a little bit of math work or to write out an extra line, no one's going to trust you to be able to do something way more complicated. You are planting the seeds for yourself to be able to grow and become a better and a more effective person who can communicate technical ideas. So showing your work is really the first part of that. If you cannot even do that part, what makes you think you'd be able to do anything more important, or more bigger and work within a team to be the next Google, be the next Amazon, be the next Twitch, or build the next big companies or anything like that, right? How could you do that if you aren't even going to bother to write down a little bit and show your thoughts?